What is going on, everyone? Welcome in right here to the Voice of Call
The heck
live on
was
the
that?
Ohio State channel. And we hope that everyone's having a great night as we once again look into the preview of the Oregon Ohio State game and potentially game of the year potential, huh, Spaz?
Yes, definitely potential game of the year. And up to this point, it probably will be the game of the year. And it's probably going to have the most viewership, could set records. They're stating uh, NBC telecast, prime time. All the ducks are lined up. Let's go get it.
And I don't want to waste anyone's time here because we have two special gentlemen, someone that a lot of people in the Ohio State fans group are going to know, both of these gentlemen, actually, especially the Oregon fans. So let's both all welcome in Ryan Winters of Sports Chat 503 and Cleveland Mike. How are you gentlemen doing tonight?
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate you guys. Yep. Everything's good, man.
So, Mike, we were talking backstage before we started, but for those who don't know you or whatnot, give us a little bit of on you and your background and what you do and stuff.
Yeah, so I joined the guys with Best Damn Media. You can find us on YouTube, Twitter, anywhere on social media, and also the host of the Fans Edge, where on the same platform where we just talk all college football, not just the Buckeyes, but we go, talk everything college football. So always been a big college fan. I love college football more than I like NFL. I'm just one of those guys. So yeah.
Nice.
And I think most people know Ryan, but Ryan, if you want to, for the Ohio State people watching, we're broadcasting on both
Sure.
channels. Just to let everyone know about you a little bit.
Yeah. I'm a guy on YouTube, and I've been out on YouTube for a while. I think this is year 15, and it's fun time. We like the Ducks. We go to the road games if we can. We go to the home games. It's a family affair, multiple generation. My son's there now, so fun times. We're excited for this Ohio State game, man.
Yeah, definitely.
I think most everyone is. This is the game, everyone had, I think, circled when the schedule came out. It was kind of not necessarily the makeup game, but definitely the game kind of to replace the 2020 game that we didn't get to have for Ohio State at Autzen. And then we all know what happened in 2021 when Oregon went to the horseshoe. So this is kind of like the payback game maybe for Ohio State. I don't know what that's gone into with Ryan Day's planning. Maybe you have some insight in that, Cleveland Mike, maybe?
Hey, I mean, I know it's definitely payback for the fans. Not sure how Ryan Day is seeing it. I think Ryan Day is just looking like, hey, this isn't the same team or same defense. You're not going to be able to run the same plays and score. So I think that there's a different mentality, especially, they say that the players take on from their head coach, and the players say, hey, we couldn't stop the run. We couldn't do any of these things. They're expecting to be better on defense this year.
Yeah, I think CJ Burdell's still running circles around the horseshoe.
Yeah, thank God Kerry Combs is not here.
Ryan, you were at that game in 21, weren't you?
In Columbus? No.
Yes. No, you didn't go. Okay.
No.
What do you remember most from that game and what it did for the Oregon program and stuff?
Yeah, I think it legitimized a lot of the national narrative about that matchup, and I think it kind of was a precursor to what we're going to see when we join the Big Ten. I think it was a big deal. Up to that point, I think it was 9-0. Ohio State. Most of those games were all in the past, but I was at the Rose Bowl where we lost in 2010. I was at the national championship game where we lost, and that was absolutely heartbreaking. So we've been to these games and squared up against this team before. That was a game that was really excited. I didn't go. There was a lot of restrictions still on COVID, and there was a bunch of other reasons I don't think that But I still am bummed I was not there. I should have been there for that game for sure. Yeah, it's just it was a big game. This is a totally different team though. I think a lot is to be made of history. I'm a history teacher, so I get it, but I think every year in college football is radically different, especially now with the transfer portal. These teams change so much. You got different defensive coordinators over there. You got different offense guys. You got different defensive guys here. You got different coaching staff completely, different players. I mean, there's, I think, a handful of guys maybe from each one of those teams, maybe still around with the COVID extra year or whatever. But, for the most part, that was just a game that gave a little bit of Oregon legitimacy. And again, from the Oregon perspective, I don't think it's, wrong at all to say that, the programs are not the same. Ohio State is one of the best of all time. It come about the blue bloods. It's going to be one of the blue bloods that welcomes you in the blue blood door. Oregon's not there, and Oregon's trying to get there. Obviously, Oregon's done a lot in the last 20 years to put themselves in this situation to make this game matter. But when I walked out of that stadium in Jerry's world after that national championship, my aunt, that was the last game I saw with my aunt. Rest in peace, my aunt. Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Got her. She said, "Hey man, that's just another trophy for them, and that would have meant a lot for us." And it just was just another trophy for them. And that's kind of how they looked at it. They're just like, all right, on to the next one. And that stung for me a little bit because that kind of shows you where these two programs are, where that's just another one in the trophy shelf for them. But for us, we would have been looked at that like, it's forbidden fruit. I mean, we got one Heisman Trophy in the building, and it's important stuff out here. So we're climbing. We're trying to get there. This is going to be a big game. If the Ducks can pull this game off, this is going to be a huge one.
Yeah, absolutely. Ben, what are your thoughts?
Well, of course, this is. Some people have said, and I agree in some sense, that this is the biggest game that's been at Autzen Stadium. Now, historically, I don't want to say it's in the sense of how Oregon climbed in relevancy. There are other games, the pick, when we took over with beating USC to start running the Pac-10 at that time. Those are historically game-changing type games in Autzen Stadium that elevated the program. But in the sense of the sheer just level, 2 versus 3, now in the Big Ten, I'd still say it is probably the biggest game in that sense. Yeah. So I find a fine line between historically and then.
Yeah, I think I can speak on it. Being a guy who's been around Autzen for as long as I've been around it, and I was at that Kenny Wheaton's going to score game '94. I was at that Halloween night game USC. This game is different because of like what you said, Ben, about the idea that it's Big Ten or first time. It's the 12-team playoff. It's a bunch of other stuff going on right now, but it's also this matchup is unbelievable, and it would have been the biggest non-conference game at Oregon had they come out and played during the COVID year. There was a game in 1982 that Notre Dame came out and played, and I was at that game. I was 4 years old, and they tied. Oregon tied them 13-13, and that was a big deal. And outside of that, there weren't a lot of teams that came out west to come out and play. Good teams weren't going to come out to a bad team's building to play. And now that the Ducks are better, teams have come out. We've had the Tennessee home and home, Michigan State home and home, and they were fairly decent, both of those games. But there's been a couple Pac-12 matchups that are great. ASU came here when they were really good. Cal came in here really good. During the Chip Kelly era, there was some really good matchups. USC, Stanford, a variety of other things, but nothing at this level.
No, this is definitely hands down the biggest game that I've been a part of in my 50 plus years of being a Duck fan. And I don't get to go to a lot of games, but some of the games that I've been to, I was there when Chris Miller got concussed against Stanford, I believe. First time I'd ever been to a Duck game, I believe it was like 85, I want to say. And I just remember my buddy was a student at U of O at the time, and he was like, come down and hang out. And wild parties on campus. it was the first time I'd ever experienced campus partying, and that was insane. And now it's like, here I am years later, and it's like, oh yeah, let's see, we're gonna drive down to game day, we're gonna get in the gate at 3 a.m., we're gonna do the game day, and then we're gonna do the tailgating and then the game and then drive home. And it's like, oh man, I think I'm a little too old for this, but I'm going to enjoy the experience because this is a once in a lifetime experience. I was lucky last week to be at the first Big Ten game in Autzen. And I'll tell you, the crowd's back. That was probably the loudest game I've been to at Autzen because everybody was on their toes. It was loud, and it was rocking. And I hope that we bring that same atmosphere times 10 because we're going to need it this week because Ohio State is not Michigan State. That is for sure.
Yeah, what do you think, Cleveland Mike, about this game? I mean, it's different.
I mean, yeah. You guys are, how would you say this? You guys are saying like this is the biggest game, but you go back in Ohio State days and the matchups of Ohio State, team up north, everything on the line, like those are the type of games that we Ohio State fans remember. So Ohio State fans, I think this year going into this, yes, this is a big game. You talk happy that it's 2 versus 3. A lot of people, I think that they're, some people want to say that they're confident about this. I don't think that. I think people are like, hey, we need to go out here and make a statement because one thing that I have said in the preseason, I thought Oregon was the one team coming from the Pac-12 that was actually ready to handle a Big Ten schedule, right? But in the back of every Ohio State fan's mind is, still accomplishing all of those goals, especially at the end of the season, with this being 2-3. But it's also, you're talking about the 12-team playoffs. You're talking about trying to get to the Big Ten championship. This game is huge in that sense. You want to be able to get to the Big Ten championship. It looks like the Big Ten can have multiple, maybe one-loss teams. So everything's riding on this game, and a lot of people think that this isn't the first time that Ohio State and Oregon are going to see each other. People think that they're going to see each other on a neutral field. Now, I believe that way as well. So, I mean, however this game comes out, these teams got to be ready to go up against each other at the end of the season again.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would not be surprised if we see each other in the Big Ten title game. And then again, possibly some people are saying Oregon and Ohio State could see each other 3 times this year because they could meet up in the playoffs as well if they're both at like one loss going in. Obviously, they'd probably both get into the 12 team, and then who knows what could happen there.
Well, and the line right now is 2 in this game, which is some people are surprised by, but most I guess aren't too. It's 3.5 still, I believe, right now. Obviously, that could change in the next day or two a little bit, but some people are kind of surprised by that, especially with the way Oregon started off the season. But obviously, some people, in the sense of that line, are expecting a very close, maybe even kind of toss-up game almost. Is that kind of the Ohio State, outlook, or?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. And the way I feel about it is which Will Howard are we going to get? I think Will Howard has those what I call those WTF moments, and you're like, whoa, what's going on? I think that if Ohio State can stay away from the turnover-worthy plays, then I think Ohio State can, go ahead and win this game. But I mean, like I said, I'm not going into this game confident. It's very hard for me to go into this game confident. It's a big game, and you're talking about both of these offenses actually being very similar as well. So I think this is going to come down to the defenses. Which defenses are going to get the most stops and win the turnover battle?
And who has the ball last? That's the other thing.
Yeah.
I've stated a few times this week is like this is one of those games that could come down to who's got the ball in the final 2 minutes. Are you trailing, going for a win, or are you trying to tie the game and go into overtime? Are you trying to win it with the last second field goal? I mean, there's so many variables that this game is most likely going to come down to. How do you see this game playing out, Ryan?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be close in the fourth. I think anything happens in the fourth quarter. I think you're right, Mike, about the turnover battle. I think whoever wins the turnover battle probably wins the game. And if something goes wrong, be able to capitalize on that. I think the Ducks are gonna have to play a pretty good game. I mean, this Ohio State defense is the truth. They've got speed everywhere. They're on a mission. It feels like a team of destiny from our perspective, looking at them and the way that they're on a mission right now. Offensively, that might have some question marks. Like you said, there's some moments, but they've got so much talent that I feel like they can really absorb some of those question marks and not really have to worry about it too much. They can hiccup a little bit here and there and just get right back to work. And I do think the Ducks are going to be in trouble if the Buckeyes can throw the ball. I think if they make them one-dimensional a little bit, I think it'll be the Ducks' favor a little bit. Although the running backs are super good, and the Chip Kelly factor, I think, is going to play a big deal as well. I think we respect Chip a great deal out here. Obviously, he helped build our program, but what he's doing now is very different. If you know the game and if you watch film, what he did at Oregon was very, very different than what he's doing now. He's become much more traditional. He still does things outside the box. Don't get me wrong, but offensive line splits are not as extreme as they were at Oregon. He doesn't spread the ball around from sideline to sideline the same way he did at Oregon. Doesn't utilize the tight ends as much as he did at Oregon. Bunch of other things there, but they don't have to. They have an embarrassment of riches. So they can run basically student body left, student body right, and not really get that exotic in their blocking schemes up front either. If you watch, I rewatched that Michigan State, Ohio State about 6 times by now, and it feels like they were just, they weren't even pulling guards or anything else. I mean, when Chip was here, he was pulling centers. I mean, he was pulling everybody. And so, this is going to be a different game because if Oregon's defensive line can put some pressure on the quarterback, I think they're into something. I don't know if Oregon's offense can score enough points. That's going to be the other question mark because this is going to be a really good on good Oregon offense versus a really good Ohio State defense. And an Ohio State offense that might have some question marks that they just haven't really been tested yet. The defenses that they've faced, I don't think have been that great. So, and what we've heard basically, or what we've seen from watching the film of Michigan State versus Oregon and Ohio State, both those teams took care of Michigan State pretty good. So you didn't really learn that much from that film either. So.
Yeah, and that's what Cleveland Mike said too, like with Howard up in the WTF moments. It's the same for Gabriel too.
Absolutely.
You cannot turn over in the red zone like that.
No, and the last weeks, I'm at the games, and so I see it kind of a little bit of a different game than when you watch it on film. And it's just it's crazy that he would throw some of these passes, make some of these plays because they're just not there. And he said that he got away with it at UCLA and he didn't get away with it at Michigan State. And it's the same damn play. It's for a left-hander moving to your right and throwing across your body. It's just, I don't like that at all. So I don't think these teams need to outthink the room. I think they've got enough talent where they can play just straight ahead, honest football and just play the game. And instead of trying to do all this gimmicky BS and outthink the room, especially in the red zone. And, Washington did this a couple of times, not to go on a rant about Washington, but Washington moved the ball up and down the field and they couldn't score. Oregon's in that same situation this year. They move it up and down the field, and they're pretty terrible numbers-wise so far in the red zone. And it doesn't mean that they can't. It doesn't mean they're not good enough. They can score. They just do weird stuff. They change the game plan when they get close and they get tight. And I hope to see some changes there, and hopefully we can get some scores this weekend, because I think the Oregon offense is going to have to score it. I don't think anybody's going to blow anybody out. I think the first team to 40 would win it. I think basically the first team to high 30s wins it.
Yeah.
I think that's where I got it at, in the 30s.
Yeah, and I think, if it's a field goal, Oregon's proven that they can kick field goals this year, so you're a little more confident there. The special teams for Oregon has been very good this year. So, there can be one thing that can change the game here. Again, like we said, you could flip a field with a fumble, but this is going to be a defensive game. Both these teams are good defensive teams. Ohio State's the number 1 defense in the country, and Oregon's about the 10th defense in the country. And again, what do we know by that right now? Not that much, because we haven't faced that many good teams, but we know on paper these are really good teams. I mean, Ohio State was good before they added the transfers, and then they add some of the best players in the country. Come on. So same thing with Oregon.
Caleb Downs.
Yeah, dude. Same thing with Oregon. I mean, when they added Muhammad, same thing. It was like they were already good. And that's the thing about the transfer portal, is you're going to see the rich get richer here. And so this is a classic matchup of the two rich schools at the moment with their football programs battling it out. Let's see it, man. If people are already projecting this as a game that could possibly be a Big Ten championship or possibly a playoff game, then it's obviously one of the biggest games of the year.
Yeah, this feels like a Washington-Oregon game last year in the regular season, where it was just that type of game, potentially. And as you were saying about Oregon's stats are like that, those stats are only skewed because, one, the O-line, that was a huge – I mean, I'm not arguing it. The O-line, the first 2 games. And Ashton Genty is still running on Autzen Field somewhere too, because that guy runs on everyone.
Right, but if you were to look at where these two teams were at the beginning of the year and where they are now, this is pretty much where you expected them to be. You wanted this to be a top 5 matchup, and it turned out to be. Ohio State's so good, they can sleepwalk through the first quarter, second quarter, turn it on the Jets, get it in the second half. Oregon literally walked out in that Idaho game thinking they could just roll the ball out and absolutely crush. And they probably should have. They should have scored a couple different times. They didn't. And then the second game, I think they knew what they were getting into, because obviously on film, the guy pops off the film. But I still think they underestimated the Broncos a little bit. And Boise State's on a mission. If Boise State goes the rest of the year undefeated, they might be higher ranked than the Big 12 champion, and they might get the 4 seed. So now everybody wants to talk a bunch of stuff about this Boise State game. No offense. I was too. I was pissed. After that game, I was pissed. I did a live stream right out of the game, out of the parking lot. And I was like, dude, I don't know what the hell's going on, because I know some of these guys on the offensive line. And I talked to these guys after the game. And I'm like, dude, what the hell? And I was a former offensive lineman. If there's one part of the sport I know best, it's that side of the ball. And I'm like, dude, what the hell was going on here? Because it's not a physicality issue. You're going to run all over these guys. It was a mathematics thing. Once they figured it out and they got it right, they've been good since. So this is going to be the real test, though. We have a lot of respect for JTT, man. That guy, bro, I'm telling you, holy moly. That was a big-time recruit out here in the Pacific Northwest. And, Oregon really wanted him. And so we've kind of watched his career a little bit. But this is a team that's learned from their losses in the last couple of years, and they're not going to go and do that again. That Michigan thing, I know you guys don't like them, and that's fine, but you can be inspired by your enemy a great deal, and they can motivate you to change your behavior a little bit. We did it with us in Washington. Hell, we didn't like Washington so much, but we looked up to Washington at the same time for years and years and years. And then all of a sudden, that was when Washington was great through the 70s and 80s and 90s. And then all of a sudden, we got better than them. And then we started looking down on them like, oh, where are you at now? Oh, don't talk so fast, because they came right back at us. They pointed right at us, blew us out, and so it goes back and forth. And now, like you said, it feels like that Washington game. Washington last year was the best team Oregon played. And so, like, straight up. And so, like, all year long, they played those guys straight up. That was a good team. A bunch of NFL guys went on that team. They had the best offensive line in the country, voted on by the people who vote on all that stuff. I don't even know if they even know what the hell they're talking about half the time. But either way, they got the award. And they had talent everywhere. They had wide receivers. They had the running back. They had a great quarterback. They had it all going for them. And Oregon only lost by that much. Oregon had a good team last year. So you're right. This is a game that I feel like if it's an instant class, it's going to be close, and it's going to be like a 37-34 type game.
Yeah, I think this game is going to be one in the trenches. And you talk about JTT, you guys won them, man. Ohio State wanted Teo as well, and you guys got him. And honestly, that's where I think the battle is going to be. I think that our right tackle, I'm very interested to see. I said in my show today that I did before this show, I said this is going to be an offensive line prove it game for Ohio State and a money game for them. Like if Fryer wants to be an NFL recruit, he's going to have to show that he can hold up against those athletic guys that you got on the edge. And same thing with Josh Simmons. He had a lot of question marks coming into this year. I think that he's been a whole lot better. Now, like you said, who have they went up against? These are going to be more athletic guys on this defensive line. And as we like to say in the Big Ten, it's going to be one in the trenches. And I think that, a lot of people talking about the skill guys on the outside, but I think that, with Chip Kelly and his game plan, it might be to feature Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson. What you saw last week was Will Howard actually get a little bit more activated in the run game. And I think that was getting him ready to do a little bit more zone read coming into this game.
Yo, I see the comments down here. I just clicked over. I didn't even have access to this. I checked on the comment. This dude, Tony Montana, he loves you, Spaz.
Yeah,
Tony Montana, he's a big fan. But he said that I made a comment about Ohio State looking up to Michigan. No. I'm not saying Ohio State looks up to Michigan. No. Oregon looked up to Washington when for years in the 70s, 80s. You got. I know. I talk fast. You all listening too slow. The ideology is that when you start thinking about Michigan and Ohio State, that's the best rivalry in all of sports. Nobody's looking up to anybody else in the whole thing. I mean, come on. I know what I'm talking about a little bit, dude. The idea that you can learn from the losses is important to understand. You all had a Michigan problem for the last couple of years. I mean, obviously, it's on the scoreboard. And what they did was a very physical game. Everybody knew they weren't going to be throwing the ball that much. Now, they threw the ball a little bit more with Harbaugh there than they are now. I mean, holy crap. They're going back in time.
First-round quarterback.
They have first-round quarterback. Exactly. But now there feels like they're going back in time. But this idea that, you still had an issue there. There was a physicality issue, and it feels like you guys cleaned that up. Now, it doesn't mean that there's a talent gap. Ohio State is just as good as anybody, if not better than anybody in the country every time they play them, no matter even if it's an SEC school. But the Michigan thing, man, you guys are direct competitors with them. You guys will step on them this year for sure. From what I've seen on film, holy moly.
Can't wait.
Of course. It's going to be phenomenal. So cheers to Tony Montana. Plus, I love that handle, bro. I just imagine you right now with just that pile of cocaine on the table, right? Right when he was going out at the end. Just like carrying it in there, dude. Just with the machine gun and everything. Just typing on the thing like, let Spaz talk.
Oh, man.
Well, you guys,
I don't even know where. I don't know where. Yeah, Tony's crazy.
He says, y'all listening to this guy? I was like, bro, you guys brought me on to talk.
That's right.
That's just it's a troll. It's trolling.
Brought Ryan on here.
He's trolling. He's trolling.
It's all good, bro. It's all good.
And think about too, as we've had a couple like Oregon flipped McClellan this last year, the receiver. This is a huge recruiting weekend. I wasn't even going to talk about it when we were talking about.
I'm glad you're talking about it.
Kind of fighting about certain players, the same players. This is going to be a huge recruiting weekend. Not necessarily for one team or the other, but there's going to be a ton of recruits there to watch this game, whether already committed or not.
Absolutely. And those recruits have Ohio State and Oregon on their list, all of them.
Facts. And you're talking about one of your commits from the state of Ohio, and Trey McNutt is going to be in attendance. And then you're talking about Ohio State commit Naeem Offord. It comes out this morning. He's going to be going to the Oregon game. And it looked like he wasn't going to go, but now he's going to be there. And that's the thing about Ohio State. Ohio State has to go make a statement, because you can't go over there and lose while one of your commits is over there. And then again, You have a commit from that state. You don't want to lose at home in front of that person, and he's definitely rooting for Oregon to beat Ohio State as well. So I think it's a pressure cooker for both teams. I'm nervous and excited at the same time.
Yeah, so many recruits, such a huge weekend, so many variables this weekend, and I got to say one thing after that Michigan State game. Dylan Gabriel, you got to wake up, because that first half Michigan State game, man, you can't be throwing 2 red zone interceptions in the first half against Ohio State, because that'll probably cost you the game if you do that this week. What did you see on that, Ryan? You were there.
One more time again. I couldn't hear you for a second there.
The first half of Michigan State game, the 2 red zone interceptions by Dylan Gabriel. What? That just baffled me.
Yeah, well, again, I just think it's overconfidence. I think it's you get some of these guys who feel like they can do some crazy stuff, and sometimes, and I would hate to say it's like the Patrick Mahomes effect, but like every quarterback, every era has tried to push the boundaries of what their coaches wanted them to do. This is a natural thing in quarterback play. And if you've ever coached any of these guys, a lot of these athletic dudes want to tuck it and go. A lot of the guys with the big arm want to yank it over the top, even in double coverage. A lot of the other guys, throw under the knee stuff, whatever you want to do. Dylan Gabriel is a guy who I don't think has the stronger arm that we're accustomed to after last year's of Bo Nix. Bo Nix has a much stronger arm, and Gabriel can spin it. Don't get me wrong. But, to me, a lot of it has to do with technique. And I know as classic, athlete, are you by the book? Are you natural? But, there's a little bit of both. And, for quarterback play especially, watch any of these broadcasts, with tons of these guys have quarterbacks in the booth, right? And these quarterbacks will tell you, if you watch the film on the thing and you watch the replay, they'll tell you, hey, this guy's feet weren't right. This guy's feet weren't set. He's throwing off his back foot. He's throwing off his front foot. He's not getting his feet set. And the ability to put your feet in the right position is super important. When you go out on the edge and you're a running quarterback and you're rushing off the edge, you lose a lot of that ground. And I do think that there was an issue. Everybody in the building knew where he was going with that too. I think the other thing is, like, Oregon is so variable. There are so many variables in their offense. And yet when they get in the red zone, it gets tight and it gets real predictable for whatever reason. So not only is it dudes are jumping the route, they know what's coming. You got to tip the cap to the defensive player as well. He knew exactly what was happening. But also the idea that you would not just throw it out of the back of the end zone. That's the other thing that's kind of crazy to me, is there's been some moments this year. Dylan Gabriel's a very good quarterback, very established, long history, whatever the case. But there's been some moments this year where he didn't feel the pressure in the pocket. And he got sacked when he could have stepped up, or he could have, somehow avoided that sack a little bit. It felt like he was blind to that. And then there was times when he throws the ball into coverage that he shouldn't be thrown into. And you got to be cleaner with the ball, especially against a team like Ohio State.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey,
and that's the one
co-host
good
there,
thing.
Mike.
That's the one good thing. The last couple of weeks, obviously, the first 2 games alone, it was, I believe, 7 sacks. Last, couple of games, 0 sacks. So that has been cleaned up, but the turnover still got to stop. That's a no-go. That's a death sentence against a team like Ohio State.
Well, especially the momentum. That's the big thing for me, is if you work with kids and have any youth sports, man, momentum is huge. And you get a goal line stand, boy, that thing is humongous. You get a dunk in a high school basketball game on somebody. Oh my God. It's like 10-point swing. And so, yeah, you screw up on the goal line and you give it to them on the 20 going the other way. Brutal. It's a 10-point swing, especially if they go down and score. Now it feels like it's a 14-point swing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we cannot have. Turnovers are going to be key. So we'll see what happens. I'm nervous as hell. And the closer this game gets, the more nerve-wracking my brain gets.
No, just wait till Saturday when you got to wait all them hours. That's the one thing about the night games. In the Big Ten, it's always been big news, and we, get our games over with pretty quick, man. But now we having more primetime games with the new TV network, in contract. How are y'all liking this? Are y'all feeling any effects of this? Some games being earlier than most. How is this for you all?
I'll say at least I did predict, and I told Spaz specifically. Ryan did not, but Spaz and our other guys for a while, they were going to take over the Pac-12 late night time slot, and I was right. 1:45 in the morning post game, Central Time Live. I was right.
Yeah. Ryan doing the Boise State game post game from his car. That was great.
Yeah, man.
I was listening to that.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, the post games are fun. I mean, I normally get back up to Portland and do it, but my son takes pictures, and so we were waiting for him. It took him forever to get out of there, so we were waiting for him, and so I had an hour, and it's nice. The cell service at Autzen Stadium is terrible. You cannot send a text message in that thing at all. But if you get outside of it and get out into the parking lot a little bit, it was fine. But yeah, no. I mean, again, I think, on my channel, like I said, I've been doing this for a long time. So this is nothing like new to me. Before the term podcast, I even heard the term podcast is what I was doing. I've been ranting and raving for years. I've been screaming into a microphone for years after games. And, the fact that you were pissed about a win, was saying something about where this program is, and, historically used to just hope, pray for a win, and then you start getting really good with Chip and you just expected it. And there was kind of a little bit of a gap between the generation of the previous generation of Duck fans that were like, okay, it's gonna all fall apart at some point. And the other Duck fans like, nope, we're gonna go undefeated this year. And that there's kind of still that gap a little bit. And I do think that the Ducks have the talent to be able to have that conversation, but at the same time, as a coach, boy, that's just not what you want to put yourself in the right mindset of. You got to play every one of these games. Illinois is going to come to play. Indiana for you guys is going to come to play. That Penn State game. I had Juck on Bucks on my show just the other day. Juck's a classic. Big Ten Ted on my show the other day. And both those guys were saying, hey, man, this game's big. Don't get me wrong. But the Penn State game in a couple weeks is also gigantic. And if the Buckeyes win this week and Penn State wins this week, that's going to set up for another gigantic showdown. And so, again, like you were saying earlier, Mike, this is just another game. Yes, it's a big game for sure, but we need to make a distinction. It's also another game for Oregon. It's not like we're trying to make this out to be the biggest thing ever. It just happens to be, I think, the biggest matchup at Autzen Stadium. Okay. That's the kind of thing we're trying to say is like, if you go back in time, the Grateful Dead had more people come to Autzen Stadium than a football game.
Look at ideology, that, man.
Yeah, dude, come on. I mean, come legend.
On. HOF. I'm kind of shocked. I mean, I understand like the home game. I'm shocked we not like having this game. So like, it doesn't. How do y'all feel about like the 60, like under 60,000 capacity? Are they planning on making it bigger? How big are
population? I mean, HOF's in the building. He can speak on it too. I mean, anybody's been out here. We don't have the population out here. The size. We don't have the size and scope. We don't have. It's harder to get to out here. If you have alumni who are not from here and they leave, they're only coming back for 1 or 2 games, maybe a year. Okay. The stadium basically sits about 57,000. They built extensions on the corners a couple of years ago to add more standing room only. And when they packed it, the biggest time ever, it was just over 60,000. So I think you can sit comfortably in there like 57,000 or so. I think there's about 4,000, maybe 3,000 standing room tickets you can get as well. The thing about Autzen Stadium is if they're going to expand it, they're not going to expand it to 80,000, 100,000, nothing like that. That's not what they're going to do. They would do a renovation on the north side, and they would renovate it to kind of match the south side. They'd put new luxury boxes in. They'd add different type of seating.
Okay.
I do think that if you look across the board, a lot of colleges are actually shrinking their stadiums. They're getting rid of seats, especially the Pac-12. USC redid the Coliseum. It was gigantic. Stanford redid their stadium. It was gigantic. Research just redid their stadium. They closed down seats. Husky Stadium was, it's all these different things. Anyway, my point being is that I don't think there's just the need to like get it to. There's no way I see it going to like 80,000. Maybe it gets to like 70. Maybe they add somehow another 10,000 somehow and fit it over on that other side. But the mystique of Autzen is the fact that it's in a bowl. It's in a former garbage dump that they excavated out. So it is literally a bowl that is aesthetically pleasing.
Uh-huh.
And when you're inside the stadium, it's aesthetically pleasing. Yeah, HOF says right here, great point. It also need to come with infrastructure. Eugene is not a big town. Eugene is the size of basically one quadrant of Portland. Portland is not even 1 million people by proper Portland. The Portland metro area is like 2 million, which is about half the population of the state.
Yep.
So we just don't have that many people out here, and it's a small school. There's only 20,000 kids in the population of the school. We're not churning out thousands of graduates every year that are that alumni base that are going to continue to fill that stadium. And like I said, a lot of people are transplants. They're not from here originally.
Mhm.
And no offense, I mean, Oregon's beautiful. It's gorgeous out here. But if you're from California or from somewhere else in the country and you move here for college, chances are you're moving back to where you're from. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like on the whole, it doesn't mean there's not people who are going to stay out here or go someplace else or move to Hong Kong or whatever. Sure. But my point being is that we just don't have the population for it. So there's cathedrals out there that are 100,000 seats and everything else, and they fill those things up. It's awesome. I'm going to go to Michigan this year. Michigan is literally twice the size of Autzen Stadium.
The reason why I was saying that was because like Big Ten fans travel really well. I know like Ohio State has a very large fan base on the West Coast, and hearing from different Ohio State fans, and they're like, man, I can't get no ticket there. There's no place to stay there, things like that. So, I mean, especially like hearing the Airbnbs are all sold out, things like that. Like, I understand what you're saying about the population. I just know Big Ten fans like to travel and travel really well.
Yeah. And it's a fun environment to come to. They're going to want to cross this off their list. And there's going to be a honeymoon period, I feel like. It's not going to be forever that everybody's going to be traveling everywhere, but it is going to be, especially the first 5-6 years here, where everybody's going to try to get to all the stadiums. The big thing is infrastructure. Yeah. Hotel rooms. We host the Olympics qualifiers, right? The Olympic trials. And the world championships. I mean, is there like world track championships at Hayward Field? And people have sold out of everything. People are renting their houses just because it's available. They're like they're moving someplace else just because they have to do the Airbnb thing because there's just such a demand for it. So you're right. I also heard, being a season ticket holder, that we sold out of our season tickets this year. I mean, completely sold out of our season tickets. And there were a lot of people talking about how there were Big Ten fans who were buying our season tickets so that they could guarantee their seat for their game, and then they would be selling the rest of them. And if you look at the secondary market, you can see a lot of this. There's a lot of tickets available.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see how it's going to go. I do think that there's a fervor. And like Tony Montana said here, West Coast doesn't care about football. Nebraska sells out. Why can't Oregon? I think there is a lot of passion for football out here, but there's also a passion for elk hunting and like fishing and like not going to games and sitting in traffic. People are sitting in front of their couches or in front of their TVs on their couch nowadays. People just aren't consuming live entertainment the way they were back in the day. People don't read newspapers anymore. Things change.
What's a newspaper?
Yeah. Right. I was telling my students, I'm a high school teacher. I was telling my students, I grew up at a time where the newspaper, I said, distracted driving existed long before. I used to see people reading the newspaper while driving. And the kids were like, what's a newspaper?
Yeah.
Well, and I think to your point too, Ryan, like you say, and to Nick Cody. So for Cleveland Mike, Nick Cody's a former offensive lineman for the Ducks.
Hall of Famer.
And Jeff Schwartz said the same thing on Twitter earlier. Former famous, legendary O lineman. He was like the same thing. He's like, leave the stadium alone, update some things, maybe
Yes.
upgrade some areas. Don't mess with how it is. And I 100% agree with him. The infrastructure around it, as we were talking about, it comes with, because that's it. Everything's sold out months in advance. Months and months in advance. Now, when you start getting this Big Ten money coming in now, and then especially the full scale, and if Oregon stays on the same trajectory, you're going to see a lot of probably a little more investment in the infrastructure around it. Then you can start talking, but that's it. Like Ryan said, we have to see years down the road how that kind of goes, because that's it. Oregon is, I grew up in Oregon. Oregon is not a large state population wise, even to this day.
No, you could drive north to south and from top to bottom and be in the next state in like 4 hours.
Sounds like Arkansas.
Yeah, and it's the I-5 corridor is the population, and so it's Portland is half the population of the state. So again, it's an interesting situation out here. It's a very rural area. Either way, we're passionate about football. It's just that we just don't have that long-standing tradition. Grandparents passing it down a generation that everybody goes, and you have these season tickets that nobody can get a hold of, and people have to die for you to get a season ticket. I mean, seriously, that's how it is in some of these places. I mean, you go to Purdue this year. Purdue's terrible. They're the worst team in the league. Go to sell out almost every single game. They're going to run that damn
that's all there is
train.
to do.
They're going to go. But that's my point is that you go look at Stanford or Cal outside of right now with Cal being a little bit of hyped. Look at Stanford right now. There's about 14 people in the stands. We went to the Rose Bowl. I went down there for the UCLA game. They had 43,000 people in the stands. Okay. Which is wild in a 100,000 seat stadium that I've been to in the Rose Bowl where it's absolutely jammed and there's nowhere to go. This, you could go anywhere. And half that population was the Ducks. This is UCLA. This is in the Big Ten now. I mean, and think about it, if you rewatch that Indiana game, way more Indiana fans. They're taking advantage of going to LA. Hell yes.
And props to Cal and the Calgorithm, as we like to say on Twitter. Props to the Calgorithm. I was up late.
Yeah, well, I was pissed that Cal lost that game a little bit, but at the same time, I have no love loss against Miami. I mean, they needed to stay in that thing, but it was just a weird ending to that deal. Somebody got to guard somebody at the end, though. That middle linebacker got lost on that play. That inside receiver took off. There was trips on the left. The good inside receiver took off. No one even covered him. He went for like a 75-yarder right in the clutch. I mean, are you kidding me? I mean, you can't have that kind of a thing and then bitch about the refs.
Yeah, but I mean, that was definitely a blatant.
It was an egregious call. I get it. I mean, I saw on Twitter somebody said we tackled. There was a picture of a Duck player tackling Cam Ward, like in the shoulder pads, helmet in the shoulder pads, wrapped up around him, and they said that was called targeting against us. And then this one, it just gets popped, right? Whatever.
Yeah,
it is what it is.
Yeah.
The thing is, you're going to have to be able to deal with adversity at the end of a football game and be able to get that W. And I think this is a game that's going to have the same sort of stuff. There's going to be some sort of call. Somebody's going to bitch about. Something's going to happen. It's going to be a tight game. And if it's a blowout, then tip your cap to that team because that team's obviously the better team.
Yep, facts.
Yeah, exactly.
What do we consider a blowout? Because what's the point difference? Because some people look at blowouts as differently, right? Some people look at it as, hey, if it was a double-digit win, that's a blowout, or your team got spanked. But what do you guys consider a blowout?
I would say 3 scores.
3 scores.
Yeah,
in this 47-20.
So what was the final score of the national championship game? 42-20. When Ohio State beat with Marcus Mariota with the third string, Cardell as the. It felt like it was, and people were saying that was a blowout. It felt like it was close until the fourth quarter or whatever. But I just think a 3-score game, a 2-score, you're in it.
Oh,
you shit! Score.
It's got Nick fired up.
Maybe yeah. I mean, I don't know what sort of point total you look at, but A blowout to me is a game you can't come back in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In this specific game, like for this instance, in this game, if I was going to say a blowout, I'd say if it's close, like late in the fourth, and it ends up being like 14 points at the end, that's okay, whatever. Like say it was 7 points, score a late touchdown, not a big deal. But if you're down 14 points most of the third quarter and then down 21 at the end, then yeah, I'm going to say, you know what, that was probably a proper beatdown.
You got smoked. Yeah.
You were not really actually in it.
Right.
You were trying to catch up the whole time.
Tony's got Nick fired up.
Don't upset Nick. Don't
Yeah,
upset
I'm
Nick.
watching.
Fire up Nick Cody. That is not a good move, Tony.
Or Nick.
That's all good.
Yeah,
That guy,
and
that
Kevin
guy
says
presses
nothing.
100-pound dumbbells. I think he's fine. I can't even lift a 100-pound dumbbell off the rack. I'm 6'2", 250. Come on now.
Right?
I'm so out of
dude,
shape. I don't know if I could do it either anymore.
Dude, go ahead and kind of try to lift one off the rack, bro. I'm just telling you.
No, thank you. I'm
It's
so out of shape.
it's an endeavor. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to do curls with this, or I'm going to press something with it. Okay, come on now.
Yeah, I think the blowout. I think there's a difference. You know, it's like, yeah, were you trailing the whole time and trying to catch up, and then you just get down, or was it literally just a absolute from start to finish beatdown? Like there's differences, but yeah, the national title game, like Ryan's saying, it felt like mid third quarter. It was like, okay, we got a shot at this, and then it just derailed from there.
It's just about controlling the game. That's the art of football, right? If you can control the game, you can control. If they're comfortable with a 14-point win and they just hold you there the whole time and they controlled it the whole time like that, well, call that a blowout because you never had a shot at it anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I do want to say welcome you guys to the Big Ten. You guys, the only time you're going to get love from ESPN is when they want you to beat Ohio State. So
Or Michigan.
I'm just going to let you know, just be expecting the hate and being like, whoa, I thought that these commentators liked us. I thought that. Just welcome to the Big Ten, guys.
I will say the one good commentator that I believe we have on our side is Yogi Roth.
Oh yeah,
Oh, that's
Yogi's
the
the
Big
man.
Ten.
Love
yeah,
Yogi.
for the Big Ten network. Yeah, Yogi's, but that's because he's a Pac-12 guy. So
Yeah,
and Pac-10, well, Pac-10, even 8, I guess, and
but at least we
Pac-10
don't have
specifically,
to
but-
listen to that that guy that was on ESPN that went to Arizona State. Rod,
the quarterback, right?
no, not RG3. I liked RG3.
No, not RG3. That he was Baylor.
The Rod, show me the money guy.
Oh,
Went to Arizona State, was ESPN commentator for a couple years. They finally let him go this last year. He was terrible calling Oregon games. Such a hater. Rod Gilmore, thank you.
Oh, Rod Gilmore.
Thank you, Sean Garner.
I thought you were talking Brock Osweiler.
No, Rod Gilmore. That guy was atrocious. Anytime he called an Oregon game, it was just about, Oregon, Oregon. It's like, bro.
If you want to really fast, Ryan and Cleveland Mike too, give a quick kind of like X factor or position group that's going to make the difference in this game potentially. Obviously, this is just kind of going at it. You know, like this group can impact this because, and that could be the difference in the game.
Go ahead, Mike.
I would say for Oregon that I think the way that they're going to have to impact Ohio State is using their wide receivers, man. I know they haven't gotten Evan Stewart going, but I think that that's the X factor. They need to get him going to go ahead and win this game. And then another thing for Ohio State, I think the front seven is good. I think Ohio State's defense is good. The X factor in this game that I've been saying since like the beginning is Will Howard. Will Howard has to have an amazing game. He has to keep the ball out of harm's way. That's the X factor for Ohio State, man.
Interesting. Yeah, just go back to what I said. Gilmore. I thought you were talking about. You said about Arizona State. Gilmore played for Stanford. Gilmore's a Stanford guy.
See, that's why I was like, who?
I was off.
So I didn't know. Yeah, because I just read in the chat somebody said Herm Edwards. I thought you were saying that when Herb went to go coach there. Anyway, X factor for this game. I don't think there's going to be one player that's going to stand out. I do think that it's going to be the matchup you're going to look for is out on the edge. I think you're probably going to look for, who can cover JJ on their side. And, is it going to be one guy that's kind of stoked on him, or is it going to be a guy who's by committee? Are we going to be running zone against these guys? How is that going to look? Dan Lanning does not run a lot of zone. So you're expecting it's going to be Jabbar Muhammad going to be up on him, but Ibuka might be the guy that steps up. There's just so many weapons on their side. For Oregon, I think Jordan Birch is going to have the big game. He's been playing very well lately. He's really set the tone defensively for this team. He's a big dude who can really move. He can put some pressure through the middle. He can get it on the edge a little bit. He can help contain. He can rush the quarterback. He can stop the run. So I think it's gonna be pretty well versed. And then obviously the linebackers got to eat in this game, man. The way that Ohio State sets the tone offensively, they're gonna have to stop them at the point of attack. And like I said, if they can force them to be one dimensional, whether that's through the air or through the run, they're gonna have to try to take one thing away to make them at least attainable. I think this game could get out of hand really quickly if Ohio State starts doing what they want to do. If Ohio State starts running what they want to run offensively and Oregon's kind of chasing them a little bit, it could be a long day for Oregon.
And that's kind of where I was going. Not just Jordan Birch, is more the D line's got to get after Howard, because as Cleveland Mike says, then Howard might be in a world of hurt. Because if you look at statistics, under pressure, Howard is not very good this year. He wasn't at Kansas State apparently too. If people look back at the stats, under pressure, he is not good at all.
Well, I don't think that many quarterbacks are, right, Ben?
Yeah. There's just something about he doesn't get pressured much, but when he has been, he's
right.
It's not good. So I think the D line has to try to get home, not just stopping the run, but initially, but also pressuring Howard on potential pass plays or just in general.
And I think that's just about trying to slow this offense down, trying to push them off their spot, trying to throw off the rhythm a little bit, do whatever they can, because Chip likes quick hitting plays, man. Chip likes to get the ball out of his quarterback's hands quickly. And so it's going to be imperative that the Ducks be able to get to him fast. 3 seconds and it's going to be out of his hands.
Yeah, and that's something that the safety for Ohio State said is their job is to get the quarterback to hold the ball up to 4 seconds. They know if they can get to that 4th second that the D-line will get home. So that's definitely the game plan that they're going in. And I also want to say this because this is a guy who's been quiet for Ohio State. No one's been talking about it. The focus has been on Emeka Egbuka and Jeremiah Smith. And like you were saying, if they play bracket coverage or something like that on JJ, then I think you're going to have to watch out for Carnell Tate. He's a guy who has flashed in this offense. I believe last week he was sick, but Ryan Day said he had a really good week of practice. I think that's someone that you're going to have to watch out for. He's a very tall, athletic wide receiver. And I think that it could possibly be a jump ball type of situation with Carnell if you're throwing it down the field. But then we've also seen him, catch a short pass and then be able to take it. Doesn't look like he's running fast, but he has those long legs and he's actually running fast. So I think that he can also be one of those guys who's sneaky in his offense because everybody's worried about Emeka and JJ.
Yeah, I agree. Brandon Ennis, he's a 5-star guy too. Barely cracks the field. So, this is, again, just embarrassment of riches. Ohio State's been that team. Their cupboard is absolutely stacked. And yeah, it should be an absolutely fun one, man. It's going to be a blast, dude. I hope it lives up to the hype. I'm trying to do my part to hype this thing up as much as I can. So I appreciate you guys having us on tonight, man. It's been great.
And Ryan,
sure.
just one quick second too. To your opinion to this is from Sean Garner. One super chat. Thank you, Sean. You don't have to do that. I know Sean. We know Sean. He can ask any question. This has been a statement this week. People have been saying, or a lot of talking points. Is Oregon's interior offensive line as weak as he's heard in Sean Garner? And I don't know if it's the weakness necessarily, but it's gotten better. Let's put it that way. I think a lot of people are looking at the first couple weeks.
Yeah.
We haven't had a sack in the last 2 games.
Yeah, there's not been much pressure on Gabriel since the second half of the Oregon State game.
Yeah.
But again, UCLA's defense is absolute garbage. I mean, we're talking about like UCLA is going to get hammered this year. I mean, big time. This is the real test. I think both these teams have gone through a fairly easy schedule so far, and we're going to see what we can see this week. I do think that Oregon's offensive line had some issues early on in the year, like we were talking about earlier. I think it was more of a mathematic situation. It was a matchup issue. You had guys in there who maybe weren't making the right calls, or maybe the calls that they were making were not sustainable. You know, things move so fast in the offensive line, and you know, HOF's in here. Speaking of offensive line, you know, you got to kind of have a plan A, plan B. You're trying to get through your plan A so you can get to your plan B, whether that's blocking down on backer, whether that's chipping a guy, helping a guy on a double team, and then going down from there and seeing who else you can get. I think they were getting overwhelmed at the point of attack. I don't think it was about a physicality issue. So that word weak is like, you know, are they the weak point? Are they weak chain in the offense or whatever? I think it was just they were getting out matched a little bit when it came to extra pressures. And guys were bringing offensive or outside linebackers on them. They were bringing safeties up. They were, you know, coming at them with 4 or 5 or 6 guys oftentimes, and just trying to overload the offensive line, which sets them up to be weak on the backside. And they were willing to gamble on that, just try to push Gabriel off his spot. Oregon figured it out, and they'll be fine. But yeah, Ohio State is going to be the best team Oregon faces all year. It'll be the best defense Oregon faces all year until they get to the playoff, if they get to the playoff.
That's been our whole thing. That first couple weeks, a lot of it, I think, was communication too. Moving Poncho to center really helped re-solidify the line. Obviously, we don't know what's up with Bedford still, whether he's going to redshirt or he's going to come back eventually.
Have you heard any more on that, Ryan?
No, he's been out. He wasn't even dressed last week. He was in his
he was
street clothes. Because he had an injury. He had just about rehabbed. He just about come off it, and then he got a re-injury on the thing. He's probably, I would assume he's probably out for another month or so. HOF's comment here, I don't know if you can pull that up, Ben, or not, where he says something about moving Harper.
Yep.
Right. So HOF knows what he's talking about. This is a guy who is, again, a Hall of Famer in the duck community. The idea is at the end there, he says, the interior doesn't have to be as dominant. They just need to know their own space and not miscommunicate. That was the issue, was there were guys who were clearly just in the wrong place at the wrong time. And they were helping double team when another guy was coming wide open. They were blocking down on the defensive tackle when the defensive end needed to be picked up, or whatever the case may be. And it doesn't take that long to throw them off. It doesn't take, it's like you said, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, and you're in that guy's face. So, HOF, man, what up, bro?
Yeah, they did a good job during the second half of that Boise State game to kind of figure it out, at least sustain it, or make it a little better, improve it. But it's gotten better since then.
Dudes off the edge too. Boise State really impressed me with their guys. Idaho didn't impress me. Idaho was you know, they were fine. They were a much more competitive team than I thought they were going to be, for sure.
Yeah,
and they're good on their level for sure. But the key thing is that it was just about the number game. They could have had guys half the size. They were just able to overrun the thing just based on the numbers. So then you put those guys on the number game and you put them with size. Now you're in real trouble. That's my point, is that I think if you want to get home, if you're Ohio State, you can bring that pressure and pretty much guarantee that you're going to collapse that pocket. It's just about whether Gabriel can get it out of his hands fast enough.
Yeah, and not
He has a
second
quick
guess
release
himself.
too.
He does have a quick release, and he's an old quarterback, so he feels the pressure. It just there were a couple times in those early games where it felt like he was almost like he was the last one to realize he was getting pressured. He was like, "Wait a minute, what? I'm getting pressure? This is not something I'm used to."
Yeah, exactly.
The one thing that I have been thinking about in this game is like Dylan being a bit shorter, and for some reason I don't know how, but JTT is really good at timing, that up. And Dylan Gabriel is a left-handed quarterback, right?
That's right.
So he's going to probably be, we see Jack Sawyer coming off of the right side more often this year, and JTT coming on the left. That's something that I'm kind of interested in watching, how he gets his hands up, things like that against Dylan Gabriel. I think that that's something that a lot of people haven't talked about. But like I said, the one thing that's good for Dylan Gabriel is his quick release.
Oh yeah, but you're gonna get some hands up in this one. I mean, and Gabriel is short. I mean, I had a picture with him last week. I'm 6'2". He sits about right here. So I don't think he's 6 feet, and he's gonna have to get that ball out of his hands fast, and they're gonna have to put that ball in the running back's hand. Jordan James is gonna have to eat in this game. You're gonna have to create some lanes. You're gonna have to get that ball rolling. You're gonna have to move those chains by running the ball, otherwise you're not gonna be able to pass. Because the defense is too good for Ohio State. They're going to pin their ears back. They're going to get after you on the front, and they're going to have it on the back end as well because those guys are good and probably the best safety in the country.
Is there any word? Because beginning of the season really quickly too, Ryan. We don't want to keep you too long or keep going on forever. But at the beginning of the season, we were wondering where he was, and I guess the word was he's not used to the playbook enough. Is there a chance we see a little 6'2" bowling ball and called Jay Harris taking the ball?
Yeah, I mean, I really don't. I really don't know. I just, yeah, they said early on it was probably just an inexperience issue, but it's hard to make the jump from where he was at to the Ducks. But yeah, no, I short yardage situation. Maybe you'll see something in the future for sure. But I think the number one thing is you got to hold on to the ball. If you let the ball out of your hands in any of these practices, you're not going to see the field. So, and no coach is going to tell the reporters that their running backs are fumbling in practice. But if you put it on the turf, you're not going to see the field. And that was the thing I was most impressed with Jordan James when he was a freshman. He was a short yardage back because, Jordan James, when he came in, he was a bigger guy. He lost 20 pounds between his freshman and sophomore year. He leaned way up. And when he became kind of more of an every down back his sophomore year and did a great job, he's very sure-handed with the ball. His freshman year, he didn't give up one ball. And that's crazy. Again, just to even give a freshman the ball on goal line situations is nuts to begin with, but he's very sure-handed. So I expect him to be the guy. And I think Noah is the other guy who has come back from injury. He fought back all the way. He's a great player out of the backfield. He catches the ball beautifully. He's getting his feet underneath him. He had that big kick return. So it's, again, I think that you're going to see them feed the ball to him as well. I just don't think there's enough touches for guys like Jay Harris and whatnot to try to get out on the field.
So you think we're just going to still go with just Jordan?
Yeah, I would say it's Jordan 80-20 to Noah. Jordan's proven that he's one of the best backs if you give him a chance, and he likes to get lathered up and start to get this thing going in the second half. I mean, again, I think the good running backs want to be used and want to have the ball continually given to them. I think they get better as the game goes on. And he's one of those old school throwback type of guys, man. Southern running back, man. Come on.
Yeah,
now.
he impressed me last week running the rock doing that.
Well, again, just to speak on population, again, like in Ohio, you're in a little bit of a ripe area of high school football. There's that whole Iron Belt is known for their high school football. Obviously, Texas has their thing, Florida has their thing, California has their thing, the rest of the South kind of a thing. Oregon is nowhere near that. Or the amount of Oregon, the players that come out of it doesn't mean we don't make great players out here. Namakan Sue was from Portland, Oregon. Shout out to freaking Sue, one of the best players I've ever seen, one of the biggest athletes I've ever seen. I saw that guy play high school basketball. Holy moly! You want to talk about setting a screen? But there's just not that many people out here, and there's not that many D1 athletes out here. So again, I think Oregon even add to it the fact that if you go down Ohio State's list, there's a bunch of guys from Ohio. There's not that many guys from Oregon out here on our roster. So I think that's another thing, kind of to speak on the whole. Do you expand the stadium? Are you this, that, and the other? We need the rest of the country to fill out our roster.
Yeah. I saw a comment in there from Sean Gardner. He said Ransom might actually be playing better than Downs. And I just wanted to comment on that. Jim Knowles was talking about how they haven't needed to, he said, activate Downs. And the one time that we saw him activated where Coach Knowles said he did was in the Michigan State game where he won defensive player of the game for Ohio State. So like we have been saying, like Ryan has been saying, these teams have not really had to do much against the competition that they have been playing. I think that Downs will be activated in this game, but I mean, and that's why I say I'm nervous about this game as well, because I think that there's things Ohio State can throw out there that they haven't had to show, and I think that there's things that Oregon can throw out there that they have not had to show, because these are two top teams in the country. And when you're going up against inferior opponents, there are just some things you can be a little bit vanilla in certain areas or whatever just to get by in the game. So, I think you're going to see a lot of Caleb Downs this week for sure going up against Oregon.
It's the big game. You got to have everybody on board if you can get them.
Yeah, too. I think both teams, there's a lot of stuff we haven't seen. Chip Kelly's holding his stuff. Will Stein is holding on to some things. Obviously, they had to show some in certain games. The Boise State game kind of pulled that one out. But there's still a lot, I think, in that playbook they haven't shown.
I just think on both sides of the ball, you're going to see, I think probably from both teams, you're going to see the Alabama-Georgia game. And it's which team gets the jump on which team out of the gate that just confuses their whole setup. And because that Alabama game, Georgia had zero answers for them in the first half. Zero. They had no clue what Alabama was throwing at them offensively and defensively. And they were just moving up and down the field. Carson Beck had just no time in the pocket at all. And Georgia looked completely lost. Like, what is going on? And typical Kirby Smart went into the locker room at halftime and was like, okay, and made those adjustments and made that a game. Could this end up being one of those games? It could. Watching the games this year and being at the Michigan State game, I don't think Oregon has really brought much other than basic generic football to this point, enough to get by. And I hope that's what it is, because if what we've seen the first 5 weeks is what they come out with against Ohio State, I don't like our chances. But if they open the playbook and all of a sudden we start seeing deep throws and corners and blitzing and different things, then I think it makes for a competitive game.
Shout out to Vandy for throwing the kitchen sink at another team, by the way. Shout out to Vandy. Final thoughts, though, for all of you, Ryan, Mike, and Spaz, on this game. Final thoughts going into it this weekend?
Mike, what do you think, bud?
Man, final thoughts. Everybody enjoy these type of games, man. I know Buckeye fans have been wanting prime time night games. Well, here you go, Buckeye fans. You finally got it. And also, if you're traveling to the games, let's be respectful. All good sportsmanship and everything. It's cool to talk trash. Let's not have getting our feelings and everything. It's just words. It's just words. So I want everybody to go out there, have a good time, man. Enjoy it. mingle and everything. And when it's all said and done, it's all said and done. And go Bucks.
Yeah, I'm excited as hell, man. This is a game we've been looking forward to for a long time. When it's on the schedule, we all circled it. We've been talking about it all the time. Like I said, I got a YouTube channel that we've been talking about this thing for freaking months and months and months. And it's finally here. It's exciting. For my son personally, he's a photographer. Good follow. If anybody's out there, want to shout out Darby Winter Photo. He's a great photographer. He's on the field. But for him, it's his freshman year. He's in the dorms. Game day comes to town. It's right down the street from where he's at. He's going to be absolutely lit. And the idea that this thing is coming in the Big Ten, and Oregon is able to kind of create the atmosphere for this game and do their part to be able to have game day come, and game day likes Oregon. And there's a lot going on that's good going on out here. And what we're trying to do is trying to give our part of that to the Big Ten. Now that we're a part of the Big Ten, this is a huge game for that. This is a huge game for the storytelling of where this program is. And if you believe in Dan Lanning and company like we do, then you believed in every year we've kind of increased that ladder. Went from the Holiday Bowl to the Fiesta Bowl, and hopefully it's going to be that 12-team playoff this year. If Oregon loses this game and wins out, I think they're in the driver's seat for that 5 seed. I absolutely love the 5 seed. Even the 6 seed, 7 seed, 8 seed, I don't care, but hosting that first week is absolutely outstanding. The 5 seed then goes on to play the 4 seed, which is a wild setup. And Oregon could face Ohio State again if it all went down, like Spaz was saying earlier, possibly 3 times. So you're in for learn something from this game, on to the next one. But whoever wins this game is obviously in the driver's seat. So we're thrilled, man. I hope the Duckies can win, man. Let's go Ducks.
Yeah, I'm right with you. I just I hope this team just comes prepared. And from what I've seen, Dan Lanning teams seem to be focused, and he's got a new focus this year, and it's every game week by week is Oregon versus Oregon. It's not Oregon versus Ohio State. It's not Oregon versus Michigan State. It's Oregon versus Oregon. And only Oregon is going to beat Oregon. So if you play Oregon football, you cannot lose. And I like that motto, play Oregon football, you got a shot. But only Oregon can beat Oregon. And I truly believe that. And I believe Dan just has this team at that level. They were there last year, but even Dan said, it was some decisions that he made that cost us a game or two. And I think this year he's learned from that, just like the players, learned from their mistakes. Dan has learned from his mistakes. And as we saw earlier in a couple of games, he made those proper choices and took points this year. Last year, he did some gambling. Could there be some riverboat Ron gambling? Sure. There definitely could be this week. But I truly believe that there's a game plan, and he's going to stick with it. And Oregon's got a good shot.
I think so. I think so too. I just have to go with the same thing, same sentiment, especially with Mike, like, and Spaz and Ryan, all combined, kind of. Just Oregon needs to play a smart game. That's the only way we stay in it. 0 mistakes. As to what Cleveland Mike said, hey, everyone going to the game, enjoy it. Enjoy that atmosphere, enjoy that moment. And just to the teams, hey, have a good game. No injuries on either side. This is the last thing anyone wants to ever see. That's just part of sportsmanship too. Is like you never want to see another player get injured, even if it's the opposing team.
Yeah, don't be a dick.
Yeah,
don't be a dick
exactly.
in the fan.
Exactly.
Don't be that fan.
Win or lose,
like Mike
win
said,
or lose. Like,
enjoy the game, talk your smack, but be respectful and show our guests respect. Just like you would expect them to show you respect in their home. I never heard one bad iota about our trip in 21 to Ohio State. I heard very many Ohio State people were very well behaved, and they were very respectful, and that's the way we want to be out here to them. Return the favor, show respect, talk your smack, enjoy the game, but don't be a dick.
100%. And yeah, sorry, Ryan. Tony Montana will be seeing you on your channel apparently.
Yeah, Tony's welcome, bro. And yeah, it's all good, bro. It's all good, man. Come and talk that junk, man. It's all good.
Well, everyone on the Oregon channel here on the Voice of College Football, as well as the Ohio State channel, we appreciate you guys tuning in. Hopefully, you guys will be checking us. Well, I know I will be. Spaz will try to do it. We're going to do the pregame before the game on Saturday, if Spaz is available. Otherwise, I'll just come on here and rant a little bit. But as to the guest, Ryan, much appreciated for your knowledge and insight as always. And Cleveland Mike, very nice to meet you tonight and get the Ohio State side of things.
For sure. Hey, when we have to do our rematch, man, we can do this again.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, Mike, good to meet you, man. Appreciate you. Good luck to you, and blessings to you and your family, my guy.
Same to you, brother. Appreciate you.
We appreciate you both, Ryan. Again, thank you very much. As always, big contributor on the Voice of College Football, and Cleveland Mike. Great to see you and everyone in the chat. We will see you guys. Hopefully,
Ryan spent half his week with Mark Rogers already.
probably.
Yeah, I did a little bit with Mark this week. Mark's on a roll, man.
It's a busy week. It's a busy week for the two fan bases, especially. It's a busy week.
Oh yeah. Mark's an Ohio State guy. We know how he rolls.
Yeah. He's afraid to come on our channel.
He's trying to stay as neutral as possible as usual.
He sent me.
He's the commish. He's the CEO. All right, well, hey, appreciate you guys, man. Have a great one. Blessings to you guys. Enjoy.
Thanks, Ryan.
We will see you guys hopefully on the pregame Saturday. Night, everyone.